Greetings, folks. So, going to be doing what's in the title. I'm going to be like Ron Seal, quick drying wood stain, and do exactly what it says on the tin. So this is about JP, and what exactly JP is trying to measure. And sort of an example of this is, for this video, I have not prepared. I have not read through all of these comments and made lots of notes and verbs like that. That's not my preference. In writing, I will be assiduous like that, careful and methodical. But in this, I prefer to do it this way and come up with insights on the fly, or BS, depending on how you view it. So, okay. This is about J versus P. So, yeah, we know that. So let's just get down to here. The infamous Jack agrees with me that LSI correlates more to ISTJ than ISTP. SLI correlates. Yeah, yes, we know that. We know that. But here's the thing. In humanitarian socionics, there are 4 subtypes, and one of the subtypes is ISTP, TISX, contender, artisan, as heck. It even mentions martial arts and repairing car parts, all the sort of stereotypes of ISTP. The martial artist mechanic. Yeah, I know that. Well, hang on a minute. Wait, hang on a minute. Do I quote Victor? Yes. I also like to quote Vanderhoop and Jung and Keirsey. Which typologists I love is not neither here nor there, but I would say that listen to who I mention a lot. Right. So getting a little bit getting into a little bit not quite vituperative, but I'm not going to go into that tone. I'm just going to be calm. Rationals value being calm. Rationals as in NTs. So when this SJ equals guardian nonsense, okay, what do we mean by that? Let's have a look at the man himself writing about that dichotomy. So let's have a look at what Keirsey wrote himself about. Is that slightly off? Is that only that? Did I only put 1 page in? Oh, that's annoying. Did I get all of those in? Keirsey on JP. Was there only 2 pages on JP then? Maybe I only did 2 pages. Right, okay. So one of the things to think about is, and I thought about this quite a bit a few years ago and investigated it, is the issue with what JP is actually measuring and why in MBTI it measures what it does. Why it measures what it does. the way that it does. If that sort of, you see, I tend to talk gibberish when. So this is Keirsey, and please understand me too, on the JP, which is not actually a Keirsey dichotomy. It's in the Keirsey temperament sorter, which we sort of use for people that look through various profiles in the book, but the actual dichotomy in Keirsey is cooperative versus utilitarian. Now, as Keirsey writes here, and I'm going to read through this, but you can see that he has the guardians as scheduled, and this is the behavior. And then you've got the artisans as probing for options. Probing for options. And then, yes, the odd couple, the schedulers and the probers for options. So that is that. And now, then I can get into the motivation for why are guardians scheduled? And why do artisans probe for options? The actual motivation behind being scheduled. So this can be correlated to valued functions. If we look at the SFJ reasons for being scheduled, for being on time with people. I value other person's time. And I've had a ESFJ talk to me about someone being late and how that annoys her. And it's about valuing other people's time, which is why INTJ can sometimes be late and not care, because it's how this, and it's not really Janus is structuring the external world, it's organizing, and the perceiving is not perceiving, it's probing for options. And so you've got guardians who wish to belong, and if you've got a society which values being scheduled and being on time, being assiduous and careful and methodical, your guardians are going towards doing it by the book and trusting authority and seeking security. They're going with what works. As Dario names the function pretty much after the temperament. And Vanderhoop wrote about a cautious, conservative farmer doing the same thing in the same old way and caring for his animals and looking towards authorities. And then Keirsey wrote the same thing, and then Keirsey taught Berens, and then effectively what Dario has done is taken a definition of SE and SI and extracted it from the temperaments. And hopefully it's in here. It might not be in here. So I'm going to go through all of this evidence. And then I have other arguments for why socionics is messed up. So we're talking about the reasons why. So he's saying that. So if we go back to his point, it says, and if you defend MBTI SJ equals guardian nonsense, that shows you a blind follower of MBTI. No, it doesn't. It just means that guardians are scheduled because they are by temperament scheduled. And so, for example, my own father, ESTP, my own mother, ISFJ. I see the temperament differences very clearly. It is as Dario calls SI, cautious protecting, that's really getting towards the instinct of the guardian. It's the cautiousness. That's why they do something by the book. And by, if you do something by the book thing, if you do a verb by the book, you follow procedure, you do everything right, then from the guardian's point of view, you maximize your chance of success because you're doing it in the approved manner. And secondly, if anything goes wrong, it's not your fault. Now, you could say there that the guardians, in that case, that's a guardian not wanting to accept responsibility. But that's because responsibility is very important to a guardian. And Jeff has told me how he has talked to people who, and these guardians get really upset if they believe it is their fault, because they take their duty, their responsibilities very seriously. And this is all part of that guardian temperament. This is the motivational complex that lies behind the behavior, the scheduling behavior. So when we look at artisans, and artisans being, I'm going to just leave that on screen whilst I get something from Dario, where, because I've been banging on about the instinct for ages, and I'm never going to give up on the artisan and guardian as temperaments. That's just it. It just works, and it all fits together. And, you know, I am six fixated. I do check these things out to see if it fits. So I need a, Ben, I don't want to look at that for the next minute. I'm going to give you something different to look at. I'm going to give you something that I've written about writing a test and why socionics doesn't have a decent written test. Now, there are big problems with the MBTI, but J versus P works for concrete types, for telling the difference between artisans and guardians. It works less well with IN types. Right. And there's an example here of, yes, Haley. Right. Haley's been on this channel. She's talking about her NI. Right. You try to come up with some rationality, irrationality questions where she will score as a perceiver. Questions that get around her very, very strong TE, where she complains about a lot of people not being scheduled enough. Especially the women she's associating with in her line of work, and like trying to work together and network. Like, because a lot of those women are ESFP preferences, and she's like, oh, I wish they would be scheduled. But you try and, but then in doing the videos with Haley, going through her thought process and her revealing things such as, only recently has she begun to think in words. Before it was a lot of visual thinker. And this is someone who's like in her fiveness is very verbal, in that she read a lot of PhD papers because of hypertrophy. And so talk about, I keep on talking about this, atypical role enactment in a typical way. Basically, Haley is doing the kind of role enactment that you would say someone with that kind of social media accounts that she's setting up is, it's like, oh, she's ESFP. That's why a lot of people mistype Haley as ESFP, because she's performing a role of these are sort of a you could almost call it a let's call it figure modeling. And you'll say, oh, ESFP. But the way that Haley has gone about this, with the way that she has sort of basically used exercise to transform her body and then monetize it but in the way she studied so much, dedicated herself to studying these PhD papers on hypertrophy and criticizing the National Academy of Sports Medicine or Sports Science in the United States for being, or sports, whatever, for being behind the times and really old studies. And her sort of like her utilitarian approach of not going with what the authorities say and going towards the data, and heavily will criticize the NASM, whereas a Guardian would look towards a NASM and they'll say they're the authority, that's where they're credentialed, there's the expert, they believe in the system, the Guardians, and they would say, who are you to go against the authority? Who are you? What are your credentials to say? Whereas, and then the ITJ is going to say, supposed to say to the Guardian, because I'm really smart, that's why. Oh, okay, how do I know you're really smart? The Guardian will say back, how can you prove that you know more than these people who have been doing it for 30 years? Like, you see what I mean? Because they believe in the system and the process. So, you know, sometimes you're going to get maybe someone in their 20s who's going to like outdo the professionals in their in the 50s. He's been doing it a long time. Sometimes that's going to happen, but for the most part, and again, this, I can really get into this with the way the Guardians look at the world. Like, I can go up to next level. I will go next level. I'm going to give you some next level stuff, but it's almost next level stuff by proxy, in that what I'm doing is just reading some stuff out from Daniel Katz that's about the formation of attitudes, and then you can say why, what is happening, what is happening. So this is like next level Guardian stuff, and this is something that I was writing the Tell character, and I was thinking about the 6 and structure and what that gives the world, and almost and the sources of stereotypes. So there are 4 purposes of attitudes, and one of the, you've got the Sukev. I call him Sukev. Now, he did not include societal. I include societal. It works behind the scenes, the societal function of certain attitudes, because it's someone can have pro-social attitudes that are not directly beneficial to the person straight away, but the tribe would say, that's a good person, we're going to support that person. That person's a team player. The person might not see the benefit of that attitude straight away. So then you've got utilitarian, which is basically an attitude which is related to the values that you hold. So, for example, if you find someone's funny, you value humor, you find someone funny, that person ticks your box. Whatever boxes you have, if that percept, that object of perception, ticks your boxes, that's serving a utilitarian function. This is utilitarian in different way from Keirsey. Let's call it the adjustment function. But anyway, getting back to the point of one of the functions of an attitude is the knowledge function. And when he wrote about what is the purpose of the knowledge function in terms of structuring and understanding reality, to make reality more secure, to have a stable model of the world which you can believe in. The Guardians want that. They don't want all the doubts and uncertainties in the world that they cannot trust. They want stability. This is why Vaughan's called this temperament the stabilizer temperament. And the essential motivator pattern. So, where is it? The knowledge function. Because I wrote about this with Tell. Here we go. So the knowledge function. So it's an interesting, with the knowledge function, there's like an NT version of this. Idealists can do it as well, but they're usually not as assiduous as the NTs, especially INTPs are very careful with their TI. And also, so this knowledge function is like the structure function that Berens has for guardians and rationals, the NTs. So the knowledge function based upon an individual's need to give adequate structure to his universe. Need to give adequate structure to his universe. The search for meaning, the need to understand, they tend towards organization of perceptions and beliefs to provide clarity and consistency for the individual, are other descriptions of this function, of this purpose. So you've got the guardian. The guardian wants stability. They want everything to be safe. They want to be able to understand the world, know what is happening, what is right, what is wrong, what are the rules of the game. Okay, these are the rules of the game. I will play by the rules. This is the right thing. And the guardian, especially when you get older guardians and the rules are changing and the rules are not clear cut, and it's a world that they do not understand. They want to be able to understand the world in terms of a structural point of view. Now, from the outside, what does that look like? That looks like logic. That looks like thinking. But that's just the external behavior. The motivation is to fit in, to belong, to not get in trouble, to be small c conservative. And what's Dario called SI? Cautious protecting. He's named it. So here, I'll read it out again. The knowledge function based upon the individual's need to give adequate structure to his universe. Because when you have an adequate structure to the universe, you have a model of the world. This is something from NLP, like you have a map, model of the world. And a lot of these guardians have a 6 fixation. And I was writing a tarot to a 10, I was going through my own 6. And so if you've got a 6 worrying about what is right, what is wrong, and not being sure about anything, it just goes. The guardian wants to be sure. It wants a structured society. This is what you do. This is the process. This is the right method. And that attitude, very, very important in civilizational terms. Guardians are why we have a society. It is why, and is why they are cooperative. Guardians cooperating together. It's very much supports the long, hard labor of the farming, of this evolutionary strategy of the warrior, the hunter, which is more the artisan temperament, versus the farmer, which has got this more guardian endurance temperament of doing all of those kind of slow, logistical kind of jobs that take a lot of endurance. Imagine, think about farming before the seed drill, or the kind of farming in China when it was rice paddy fields. I was just thinking then, is paddy field politically incorrect? I apologize if it is, but rice fields. And it's the meticulous fitting in of that, going through these repetitive actions again and again and again and again. That kind of job requires a certain temperament to do that and not get bored out of your mind. So there's an evolutionary need in human civilization to do, for this agricultural stage, to do these kind of agricultural kind of jobs. And then societies where you had this other strategy. And it's when societies became agricultural, then you had all of these technological follow-ons from the agriculture. Before that, when you've got the hunter society, lot more SE, lot more thinking about, yes, there's general rules about what you do, but you got to think on your feet to survive and adapt and all of those other things. So this about organization of perceptions and all of that. So when I say this about structure of the world, so this is in the context of political beliefs, right? And it would be, and this is writing in the 1950s, and this is about sort of like, why do some people have racist values or prejudice? What function is this prejudice serving? Where are these beliefs and values coming from? So, and it's like these which purposes do these values serve, such as ego defensive, value expressive. So, for example, someone might have a certain opinion that expresses certain values, and it's like, why is that person doing that? Well, they are virtue signaling, or maybe it's a value which is consistent with their temperament. So for example, an idealist might talk about, why can't people just work together? It'd be better off if humanity worked together. And the Guardians would say, yeah, I agree with that, but not towards that crazy girl. Get real. So my point here is, you've got this knowledge function. Rules, say like that. Socionics would put this under L. Like Jackson of Isno recently. Laws. No, I'm saying that's just the behavior. What lies behind that? Look deeper. Ask these Guardians. Find out why they do it that way. That's the way it's done. And they would say to you, you're always trying to change the rules, Ben. Why are you always trying to change the rules? Why don't you just do it the way it says? I mean, they're right. I mean, like, most of the times, like, follow the rules, and especially the arrogance. You can get arrogant INTPs like 12 years old, and it's like, typology savvy person would say, okay, you shouldn't have that attitude yet, Timmy. You know, you need to like follow the rules for now. Right? In about 15 years, then you can start getting 10 years, you can start getting a little bit more cocky, but you gotta learn the material. All right. I'm going off base a little bit, but so here, so this is the thing, right? The control position, right? And then that's about information. But here's the thing that I didn't realize at the time, and has not been talked about by the socionics people, have not talked about this, or the humanitarian socionics people that I know not. I continually bring up this point, and it is as if I'm all I know is I get no feedback when I mention this. So what am I meant to think? That they think it's completely uninteresting, or that they don't understand? And the point I make is that all of this stuff here about, while having a clear vision of the problem, finds it hard to take action. Right, okay. Finds it hard to take action, but can take action. Why can it take action? Because it understands the problem. So all you got to do with this, to make my point, is to go through so what we're saying is the level of information, the know-how, has affected how much energy the problem requires. So for example, if you give that same task, which is a complicated task, to a different type, and who doesn't understand the problem as well, it's like, well, can you try and take action? I don't know what I'm doing, I'm lost, the other person might say. So it's not just a case of energy to complete the task, it's whether you understand the task. It's like, I used to think that if you're trying to solve a Mensa problem, it's like, the thing is, do you understand the problem? Understand the problem. And so this is the information point of view. Information changes how much energy is required for a task. So for example, what do we notice about INTPs? One of the stereotypes of INTPs is coming up with clever solutions out of laziness to sort of automate a task. And we cannot say that INTPs are really bad at TE when there's a load of INTPs in STEM fields. You know, a load of INTP scientists. So we can't say that they're bad at TE. That is about maturity in drawing on TE. And so that's where I disagree, is that people can think about, I think a lot of people have a problem of, they can understand two factors, but not how factors can change other factors. That there's a dynamic relationship between factors, that it changes it. That if we're talking about the ability, like, so right there, he's talked about, well, having a clear vision of the problem, finds it hard to take action. Right, so this is about, with all of these, it's about information for the problem, know-how, and how much, and subjectively, how draining a person finds the task. So think of yourself 5 years ago. There's something you used to do that you found a lot harder than you do now, and the task is easier. Why is the task easier? Because you have more know-how, because you have more information. The information has changed the energy part of it. Now, energy can also change information. If we correlate energy to motivation and then say, okay, I'm motivated to learn about this to be able to solve it. So those two affect each other. Whereas with the brake function is a lot harder to learn all of the little nuances. So, for example, for INTJ to learn all the little nuances of FE and how much effort INTJ has to put in just to be competent with FE. Whereas for, say, ESFJ, it's like easy. It's like that expression, so easy. As we say about someone, she makes it look easy because someone is so good at something. Or the performance was effortless because it got to that point where they had developed mastery. Yeah, so information changes energy, or know-how changes effort required. Or, as Keirsey would put, he would talk about task efficiency, effort to effect ratio. Effort to effect ratio. Right, then what's right? This is why JP is a problem when you get to the IN types. So, right, yeah. So she's INTJ preferences as well, or rather, a contender rational, NITX, but paper and blankets. That's a good line, and she also has a kid at that time. Yeah. But this is to do with, like, there's JP planning with NI and JP planning with SI. So the INTJ tends not to care about those little sort of SI details of. Now, this might sound a little bit pejorative to the, little bit rude to the Guardians, but, you know, getting all the SI details, lining up the doilies in the extreme. Whereas the INTJ Janus is coming out with big, long-term strategic planning. And in Jessica's case, that would probably be, if we were to ask her, mid strategic planning of her writing. And with J. Michael Straczynski, who I think's a Enneagram 6 INTJ, his arc plotting, 5-year arc plotting. Right. So I'm going to get back to J versus P. I'm going to put that there. I've got to find the Dario thing. And so the point is that MBTI measured something that's easy, whether someone is externally organized. And as a dichotomy for work, that is important. Does this person prefer to be, also, because someone's banging on about the MBTI, let's have a look at what the actual MBTI actually is at a sort of a deeper level. So what I'll do is I will show Jeff's, because he lets me show this, the MBTI step 2, because the MBTI step 2 breaks down the dichotomies into sub-dichotomies. And so we can at least criticize the MBTI for what it is rather than what people think it is. Right, so if I look in MBTI, this video is going to go all over the place. But again, we're going at the JP dichotomy. JP dichotomy is explained. Oh, JBTI. But I'm going to go off the actual website. It should be under Jeff's. No, or maybe it's under. Is it under MBTI step 2? I'm just going to have to put that there. You have to. You see, my preference is I didn't want to get all prepared for this because it was too much effort. Sometimes I'll get all prepared. Sometimes I don't know how much effort to put in, and sometimes I don't know what I'm going to come up with. Right, so I'm looking to find Jeff's MBTI step 2. Here we go. Dude, I can't see a bloody folder with that on when it's bloody obvious. Right. I'm gonna stop screen. So we at least know what we're criticizing. We can at least see it for what it is. And we can at least share the correct image. All right, so where's the other one? That one. No, I don't want screen, I want window. That's it, image viewer. Oh, I don't believe it. I've done it again. Making so many mistakes. That one. Right. So these are how it was sort of broken down, but just so you have more context. Right, so this is Jeff, who's an artisan, and these were his scores. Do I really need to do a video with Jeff? I could do it with Jared. I mean, I could do a video with Jeff and a video with Kristen, ESTJ preferences, creative subtype. And we could go through this JP preference, and we could bring Sabrina in, Dr. Sabrina, who has used the MBTI and other instruments such as and seen the patterns between the various systems, and used true colors, sort of guardian temperament. And we can go through, like, if you really want to do this, like, okay, and she might be like, okay, Ben, here's the data, because she analyzes data in an educational context. Here's the data. This is what the research showed for this. So we could really go for it, you know. But, you know, I ain't being paid to, like, make a massive legal case for Guardians B and J. So here we go. Let's go through some of these, and we can say why each temperament is the way that it is. Orderly structured, dislike diversions. Right, orderly structured, that's the safer way to do it. Relaxed, easygoing, welcome divert. That's the thing. Easygoing, sanguine, relaxed. Guardians are concerned. Guardians worry. ESFPs, the thing, artisans in general, relaxed, easygoing. It's boring. I don't really want to do it. It's not that important. I'll do it later. Maybe someone else will do it. Planful. Planful for different reasons. So you can have NJ planning and SJ planning. Future focused, advanced planner, make firm plan. So, but the Guardians assume the future is going to be like now. The NJs can show how the future will change, and they can be planful in terms of developing the self, more NFJ, and long-term strategic projects to develop something new with NTJs. But they're both planful, but for different reasons. Usually more risk involved with the NJ kind of planning, because it's about development, intuition of development. Whereas the Guardians are planning to stabilize. They're planning because it's safety in planning. The cautiousness, cautious protecting. So, for example, you're a Guardian and you start getting into logistics. It's like, we've got to make sure we have enough food, fuel, and ammo. We got to make sure all these contingencies are not going. So you're a great temperament for organizing the supplies in an army situation. And there is no historical precedent for the Guardians running out of ammunition. Just saying. Now you have to want the mindset of getting all your ammo, millions and millions of rounds of ammunition, and also have the ability to actually produce it. So planful for different reasons. Got artisans, present focused, go with the flow, make flexible plans. Present focused is part of the definition of artisan, in the here and now. Go with the flow, make flexible plans. I asked Jeff, why do you like being impulsive? And he asked him, because it's fun. Sometimes certain things are just an ultimate given and you cannot go deeper than that. And so with an artisan, oh yeah, just living in the flow, that's fun. What you're meant to say, why is that fun? I don't know. I just find it fun. I don't want to be trapped by a schedule. I like the freedom. Now, Jeff has probably maybe got accentuated freedom. Like he's like a member of the Libertarian Party and was a candidate in Texas. Did quite well, actually. See, that's part of his temperament. So really go for this, Jared. You know, you don't want us to like, if you're really saying that Guardians don't have SJ preferences, right? So S preference means concrete rather than abstract, and J preference means basically organized, right? So these are the aspects. This is from MBTI. This is what Janus really is, and Guardians do this. Go with the flow, make flexible plans, because they're good at adapting and like to adapt in the moment. Early starting, motivated by self-discipline, which is a big part of the Guardian temperament, because being self-disciplined is being an adult, is being responsible, and it's being steady progress. Late start useful. Again, think of these farming. What is farming? Right, here we can go. Let's go farming strategy. Two big human strategies. Farming, hunting. Planful. Systematic. When you're the farmer, you got to plan crops out. Maybe even get crop insurance and like stuff like that. You need to be able to sell it for like even having futures on your crops. Because, so for example, this is why futures came about, because the farmers wanted to be able to sell their crops at a certain price. So what they would do is in not knowing what the price would be, they would say, well, I will get a contract with someone who will buy me at that price, buy it from me at that price. Even if that's not the price at the time, they'll have a futures contract because they will know that I will have a contract to sell this certain amount of goods at this price. And the person might have thought, maybe you got an NT there thinking, no, based on this market, the price is going to be a lot higher. And I'll that overly cautious Guardian over there, I'll buy it at that price and I'll be able to make a profit. But the Guardian knows that he or she has got a locked-in price for next year's harvest or 6 months harvest, and I can sell it at that price. And that because then the Guardian is not risking, say, there's a bumper crop and the price is lower than so they want that futures contract and get it locked in, planful. So think about the farmer. And what did Vanderhoof write? The conservative farmer does something in the same old way. Early starting, get up early to do the farming. Motivated, self-discipline, steady progress, late start stressful. Now, these dichotomies work a heck of a lot better for artisans and Guardians, less so for the IN types. Right? But these also work for EPs. EPs are usually 7. Like, these will work. ENFP will tick all of these. ENFP is not casual, open-ended. Like, ENFPs are all of these. So ENFPs will tick all these boxes. Right. Right. Late start stressful. There. Artisans. Motivated by pressure. Bursts and spurts. Early start unstimulating. You see, this is getting towards the temperament. So what you see is happening here is the MBTI people have been affected by the Keirsey temperament. It's going in there. This is like motivated by pressure, bursts and spurts, early start unstimulating. Do we really want to go there? I mean, what I could do, Jared, is do I need to get my artisans on here? I get my team of artisans. I'll bring in Jeff. I'll bring in Emily D. Almost said the surname by mistake. Accomplished ESFP country music singer, and ran a translation, a Spanish teaching business, and Shannon, who's still artisan, but she's got like a strong sort of mystical streak in her. So we can have those three artisans. And then for guardians, it's pretty much just Kristen, because there's not many guardians into typology. So to get more difficult to get the ISFJs in there. I don't know them that well. Any other? I could bring in another artisan, maybe ISTP Farah, who had more activity in FP1 than FP2, because she's a rational type. But yeah, I could bring in the artisans. And Jeff knows a lot of guardians. So again, pressure prompted, part of the artisan temperament, big match players. The more the stress, the better they perform under stress. Pressure prompted, spontaneous. Again, this is all stuff artisan guardians. Doesn't work as well with the IN types. Problems. Scheduled, want routine, make lists, procedures help. Ask them, dig deeper. Why do you like a routine? Ask them, why do you make a list? And they would say, are you an idiot? If I don't make a list, you go wrong. And when you go to the shop to buy food, do you not make a list? You just make it up. What happens if you forget something? Oh, so you're a memory champion now. Why wouldn't you make a list? They'd look at you gone out. Right? Do you not make a list? The difference is, it's about, there's the behavior and then there's the preference. The guardian prefers to make lists, prefers a routine, because they see that as safe. Whereas the artisans, like Jeff has probably talked about, I didn't want to do this thing, but I pretty much have to do it, because they sort of feel trapped and unoriginal by doing it like that. There. Again, this is getting towards, and again, MBTI works, enjoy the unexpected. Procedures hinder. Very much the artisan view. So like I said, this is good for guardians versus artisans. So this is why SP is synonymous with artisan and SJ is synonymous with guardian. Like I said, with the IN types, emergent, right? Plan specific tasks, note subtasks, organized. Organized. Why are you organized? Because then I'm not going to make a pig's ear of it and get blamed and feel bad. Which is why, even with ISFJ with really bad TE, yeah, but ISFJ doesn't want to let the side down. Doesn't want to be irresponsible. You know, so they would do that anyway from an SI point of view. What they're not going to be able to do is the kind of, or hard is like the novel kind of TE that will draw on NI. Emergence. Right. Plunge in. Let strategies emerge. Adaptable. Improvisers. So if you're saying that criticism there of, which is like, Ben, you are crazy if you think SJ equals guardian. Well, I've just shown you how the MBTI actually lists under specific behaviors the subparts of the judging, perceiving preference is. So I've done that bit. I've also criticized why the MBTI measures it the way that they do is because it's they're looking at the external behavior, because it's very difficult to come up with questions that would, where Haley would score as a perceiver, that would get around a very powerful TE. So yeah, to get at that inner rationality, and what I posited was that you would need a different set of JP questions for, or rather a different set of rationality, irrationality questions for introverts versus extroverts. Yeah, so the MBTI 4-letter code should never have been created. Okay. Well, mate, I mean, what? The J and P could have been named better. It should have been named organized and... But the names, like, it just sounds bad. O for organized. D for disorganized. Organized. You have to come up with a positive option for that. Organized versus just something like creative. I don't know. But you know what I mean? It's like it's here we go. So if you defend, then it shows you a blind follower of MBTI. A blind follower. Well, that's for the audience to decide. Right, here we go. I wrote a post on the socionics Facebook that saying why I like your TNX code instead of the MBTI 4-letter. Okay. Yeah, the reason why I don't do that is because the N can because of like TI normalizing, and certain of those codes were sort of used in, or the Galenko code. So for example, NIT, and then T is time, or FIS. Oh, it looks like FI with S. So that's why I put that in. It depends which background you have, whether you find it confusing or not. Next question. This is 52 minutes on one question, but I want to go through this in terms of this thread at least. If I press, is it F11? And I go in, I try and make it bigger. Yeah, I mean, I have people complain, but that's all right. Right. Okay, well, I don't go by how MBTI doesn't really describe functions. Oh dear. Do I make this smaller or bigger and put myself at the side? These first world problems. It's not right. It is. I'm over on this one. Right. Not correct use. Right, here we go. I can just take myself off screen and just make it as big for you as possible. Oh yeah, oh, bet we want to see your affect display. We want to use a typology and figure out that's not right on this one. Okay. Oh, Ben, just scroll up. Right, okay. I'm going to make it bigger. And I'm going to scroll up. Okay. SI as described by MBTI authors. Okay, maybe. Yeah, I don't use... Yeah, they... I don't agree with a lot of their definitions. I can't think of one of theirs I agree with. 4 types of memory. Different kinds of memory. Like, you don't really want to go down there because, like, there's lots of different kinds of memory. Like, that's more a case of let's go outside of typology and look at cognitive psychology. They will study because memory is a quarter of cognitive psychology. and have different kinds of memory? Well, you just said there, NI is memory of patterns. Who says? TI, like, are you saying, do you see what I mean? Like, do you really want to go there? Like, should I need to get the book out? Do I need to go Guardian on you? I might go Guardian on you. Let's go towards the authorities. What do the authorities say in cognitive psychology about memory, which is a quarter of cognitive psychology? So, right. So there's also sort of like procedural memory, like where you are in a task, right? So different kinds of memory. There's also the memory that is involved in sensation, and in memory that's related to emotion, which is part of the limbic system and is part of instinct and is more that you've got emotion bound up with memory because you have, and with smell, because you have the olfactory bulb is next to the amygdala, which is involved with the storage of emotional memories. So I don't have to do all that stuff about, because I'll get that book out, Improving Your Memory for Dummies. And it's like one of the ways in which why guardians can have good memories is, then I came up with a lot of reasons why they tend to have good memories. All right, that's memory associated with a different. So haptic memory, that's going to be touch, like with haptic feedback. Yeah, short-term memory, long-term memory. Okay, that's the simple stuff. Right. Right. Oh, that's short-term memory. But there's also kind of other kind of memory models. Central executive, processing your memory executively, scheduling and planning kind of memory. When it goes wrong. Right. Long-term memory. You don't remember, and then semantic memory. But yeah, there's lots of different kinds of memory and different models of memory. This is not a cognitive psychology channel. Okay. So there's different kinds of memory. Actually, that's not right. That's not right. Because you've done the lowercase p. ISTP, lowercase p is SLI, because SLI leads with a perceiving function. So it is ISTJ with a little j. Where did ISTJ come from? Okay, but here's the thing. As I showed before, it works. It works for artisans versus guardians. Right. Okay. With S, it came to symbolize guardians. But it makes no sense guardians all prefer TE and FE over. Why would I say that? I've never said that. Right. In actuality, guardians are distinguished from artisans by them preferring to be in their head and heart more than in their bodies. Well, what did I say before about the knowledge function, about wanting to understand the world, to be safe? So there's a dichotomy in Berens, the structure versus motive dichotomy, in that idealists and artisans were about motive, and for artisans it's about, well, what's in it for me? Guardians are structure focused, because it's like, because this came about in terms of research into where do stereotypes come from. Stereotypes are a natural part of the human experience in trying to understand the world, and what it's about is how simple is someone's map of the world. So, for example, if you were to ask an American about France, who's an American who's not been to France, and their map of what France is, versus an American who has been to France and it's more, and maybe lived there. I think Linda Bones has lived in France. So her map of France, her internal map of France, in terms of all the, where you might have an American who has lives in one state and has a sort of a stereotypical view of Texas, whereas someone who's in Texas who knows all of the localities, and it's like with all of the refinements and all the details, all the sort of the mental model, and you get that with stereotypes about people who are unfamiliar, and sort of negative stereotypes, and because it looked at, and there was this research about why were stereotypes formed. Do I need to go to the knowledge function? There was something about, they went to that. Oh, here we go. Chaotic can be dangerous. Yes, the knowledge function. The problem of understanding, as John Dewey made clear years ago, is one of introducing definiteness, distinction, and consistency and stability. Stability. Guardians like stability because it's safer. In meaning into what is otherwise vague and wavering. Chaotic can be dangerous. Interesting. Right, here we go. Now this is old school. This is 1950s. The most interesting finding in Herzog's familiar study of the gratifications observed by housewives in listening to daytime serials was the unsuspected role of information and advice. The stories were light because they explained things to the inarticulate listener. It's like sexism in this 1950s article. It's not even on their radar. Racism is definitely on their radar, but not sexism. Because it's talking about the sources of prejudice. It's interesting. Right, okay. Brushes? What are brushes? Right. Again, because this is all about what kind of because it's about public opinion, and what do we got here? The knowledge function. Need for understanding and meaningful cognitive organization for consistency and clarity, because there's safety in that. This is why the 6 can be a head type. Restatement of cues associated with old problem and ambiguity. Right. Here we go. His need for cognitive structure is such that he will either modify his beliefs to impose structure or accept some new formula presented by others. He seeks meaningful picture of his universe. So the thing is, this seems very rational. So this is why. So you've got the ISTJ that has this belief. So this is why we're looking at things. Why socionics and Keirsey, KBN, Keirsey, Berens, Nardi, or KBNV. is looking at this differently. So you've got the ISTJ, someone with ISTJ preferences in the MBTI, a contender guardian with this need for structure. But the structure is coming from, you could also say TE as well, in that case. And then you can say that the SFJs want structure for FE reasons. So you got the ISTJ with this need for structure, usually Enneagram 6 fixated. The clarifying, to clarify the situation, to have consistency and understanding, because that meets temperament needs. But from the outside, it looks like, oh, this person's very rational. And in terms of preferences, you can look at ISTJ and you can say, well, they have an IT preference. Yeah, they're an introvert and a thinking preference. So yeah, within my model, they already have third slot TI. But, and I remember getting this from somebody else. Somebody told me this. Very good looking woman as well. INTJ. And she said that, perhaps I shouldn't have said that, but you know, it's there. She said that her brother, and this was sort of like discussing how he might use TI. And she said that, oh, he uses it to improve the system. So you got the guardian thing of believing in the system, but he's got that TI there, that fish's water TI. Improve the system. Is there anything else that it was something about stereotypes? Right. For his own purposes. Oh, right. So what was that about? Relation between attitudes and roles. Puzzling. What's this about? Generalizations. Own psychological groupings more than along lines of conventional societal categories. Interesting. Yes. The individual psychology. So we get this grouping of, because this was from a this is for public opinion. This is for political scientists in the 1950s. But like Katz is like very INTP to like, because I was thinking about where do attitudes come from, and he came up with the 4 purposes which attitudes serve. Then me being a good INTP, I added another one of my own, societal. So, but when you actually get towards the guardians, you ask them very carefully, and you're trying to get towards that irrationality part. Then you have to start asking them about their internal SI experience. That's very difficult. You have to sort of talk about them, what kind of novels they like, and like get them into a conversation of what they imagine and stuff like that. It's difficult to get at. It's easy to get at the external behavior. Another thing is that the static dynamic dichotomy is that internally guardians are very dynamic and externally they're static. So we can correlate dynamic to insecure in their moods and organizing their environment for compensation. Because if you ask a guardian about it, how do you feel when the room is messy? How do you feel afterwards? They'll say, oh, I feel better. Or when all the work is done, you've gone through all the to-do list, and the guardian is like, yeah, I feel better. I've done my duty. I've done what I should do. I've got my jobs done, and I feel better, and the world is organized. Whereas the artisan, you can have, so ESFP is around them, can be disorganized, and it doesn't affect his or her mood. Right. I more often prefer white collar over blue collar jobs. You can get ISTJ and ISTP mechanics different. I mean, I've got one from an Indian firm where outside it says the right tool for the right job in the right way. Right. Yeah, we've been through all this. Also, ILE supervised LSIs. ENT brother supervised by ISTJ dad. Yeah, but do you mean ISTJ as in contender guardian? Right. Oh, we're going to start going down that road of intertype relations as to who's type what wrong. Because I can go there. I can go there. I can go there. MBTI ISTPs really have a low opinion of ENFPs. Really low. Really low. I mean, ISTPs think ENFPs are they think they're children and shouldn't be let out on their own. And they think that ENFPs can't think. They can't do, it's like they really have a low opinion of ENFP. Whereas ENFPs look at ISTP as like, are you allergic to a metaphor or something? Like, do I have to, is it illegal for me to digress? I've seen videos. Right, I suggest you watch the videos with Cellarbook, ISTP. I don't accept SI. But this is the thing. Like, okay, this is the thing. Like, in socionics, there's so much sort of overly simplistic thinker in socionics. It doesn't really go well into nuance. It's really oversimplified when it comes to functions, and it's nuance. It's about what the function is versus what the function draws on. So, for example, TI is not logic, but TI draws on logic. Why? Because TI is going off someone's subjective thinking. So, get into a conversation with a TI user. What evidence can you point to? And they'll say, no, it stands to reason. Listen to this. And they'll go through from the subjective premise or the interpretation, the subjective factor, and it will go through and work out all of the reasoning and the internal consistency. So you've got the subjective thinking drawing on the reasoning ability, the logical, let's say this could basically come under logical and mathematical intelligence, the ability to reason it all out. Also, for example, I myself, when I'm presented with arguments like this, and I can go, okay, I can draw on some TI. I can draw on some logical mathematical reasoning and consistency and stuff. I can go there. Now, the reason why I'm not angry is because I know I'm right. So here we go. Let's do this. Because you don't know how long this has been. I've been keeping this up my sleeve and not saying it for FE reasons of not wanting to, cause too much aggro with socionics people. But let's start looking at 6 reasons why socionics has SLI and LSI the wrong way around. Right then, so the fact that, all of the Keirsey guardians have this is like evidence. There's lots of different bits of evidence and how it all fits together. But I'm going to have to go with a consistency argument from a Keirsey point of view. Right. So if you're saying that ESI and LSI are, if you're saying that Keirsey's guardians are really ESE, ESI, LSE, and LSI, well, you've got 4 types there. 2 of them with completely different functions from the other ones, valued functions, different opposing quadras. You've got one from alpha quadra, one from gamma quadra, one from beta quadra, and one from delta quadra. So there's no consistency there in terms of valued functions. 2, Keirsey wrote about associative speech in guardians. and I'm reading through it and go, this is B-side NE. This is weak, valued NE. And the Guardian is tangenting all over the place, but on a concrete plane. This is NE with SI, associative speech. And what else have I noticed about Guardians? Well, I've noticed that in humor, they really like mental imagery. So try to get the mental imagery in humor. So there's a line. I won't give one of my own away, but I have a line about C-3PO that has mental imagery in episode 2 of Wilmer's Housemates 102. Might be out at this time next year. But I'm going to give you another example of a joke that sort of came out of nowhere that the artisans did not see. So there's a line in Only Fools and Horses where they say, well, it's something like, what is it, accommodation? And then Grandad says, what is it, a Wendy house? Now that was hilarious. You'd stonker for the audience because the audience mentally pictured a Wendy house. Such mental imagery in the joke. And the Guardians love mental imagery with that SI imaginative. You get that funny picture in the mind, mental imagery. And so I've read stuff and like this book, Comedy Writing. This is SE, this is NE and SI valuing. Because what does it talk about? It talks about relationships between ideas and mental imagery. And it doesn't like wordplays. Now, artisans tend to like wordplays because they're more consonant. And all these consistencies and these patterns that you think I'm not looking at. Right. So I did the associative speech. I don't even put this as, right, sensory description. Sensory description. What? Sensory description. Why would I put sensory description? Oh, right, sensory description in novels. All those Guardians like that, but they would be typed as non-SI valuing in socionics. And then you say, oh, but they've got a strong SI, then you're sort of saying, okay, then you're making no distinction and saying that all senses. So, but there's not the consistency there. What else do the Keirsey Guardians do? Care and comfort. We all do care and comfort. That's all under SI. And socionics would agree with that and call it comfort sensor. Well, I say it's that subfunction. What does Keirsey bang on about? Just so many Guardians in hospitals and GPs. My own doctor, ESFJ. Care and comfort, the cautiousness, the cautious protecting. All the Keirsey Guardians are cautious. Cautious protecting, part of the definition. Safety by the book. Again, interview them, ask them. I'll do the video with Jeff and Kristen. Why do you do what you do the way you do it? There's Jeff. Why do you do the way you do it? Why do you do it? Go to the horse's mouth with 3 artisans. These aren't even the proper reasons. Now we get to the proper reasons. Again, the intertype relations. Carol Linden was at a place. She's got an ISTJ mother, so she doesn't see the attraction. Someone in the doing the event asked the ENFPs how many of you are married to ISTJs. And Cal said about 8 of them put their hands up. So ENFPs like ISTJs. Because the ISTJs, like the ISTJ then, will do the housework for the ENFP. And I have an example of Mr. Guardian. Mr. Human, SI in human form. I need to find him. Right, so he's in the... slides. I have a folder called slides. I'm just going to be waffling for a long time. I already have been. Slides common. SI in human form. Oh, dear me. See, I'm not being angry with I've sort of thought about these things before. And like I've been doing this about 10 years now. So INTP can say, been there, thought about that. And when the INTP hasn't been there and thought about that, the INTP gets annoyed with itself the way I was when I read Vanderhoop. And I was like, why did I think about that? I feel like a bad INTP. Temperament and code. Okay, put that over there. Link here? Yeah, link. So I'm looking for... So it was like... SI in human form. SI man. Is that it? That's SI man. SI man. Copy. I'll give examples I can point to. So where's SI man? Where's SI man? I need SI man. Come on, SI man. There's SI man. Right, stop screen. I'll show you SI man. Someone really has to go somewhere to say that artisans and this is SI man. So what I'm saying is MBTI ENFP, and pretty much an ENFPs tend to be ENFPs in many different systems. ENFP would like someone like him. So he's going to basically do all the SI stuff. Right. So it does not like all of the rubbish. So the external actions always organizing his environment. But what's going on internally? I can't stand it. It's horrible. And it's like, and you could also say that's irrational. And it's like, that's making me feel bad because that Coke can is over there spoiling my view. Or there we go. Just the words. And locals and tourists are not always known for their beach etiquette and tidiness. So he's used that phrase, beach etiquette and tidiness. This is not using this in an ironic way. He really values beach etiquette and tidiness. Once a week, I had to. I head to the beach to pick up that other people have left there. The wind is blowing there. It's quite a little, rather a sore back. Litter picking session, SI, value, and internal harmony. And I use this to pick it up. The other thing, I'm bonkers, but I'm happy. Tidy. Brits aboard. Oh, happy because tidy. The only drawback is having these, but I think that's not ironic as well. I'll be glad of these in time because I'm a guardian and I'm bored old. So this is SI man. ENFP is he's the female ENFPs or whatever the way you roll. The person for you. SI man. Although he could be more ISFJ with this sort of affect display, whereas ISTJ, I don't think this was the correct procedure. I have made a formal complaint. All right, so let's get back to intertype relations. Can I go with the other one? This is a bit next level. It's a bit more next level again. Right, this is a bit next level, Keirsey, but you can take this if you want to go up again, if you want to go up a layer. And this actually plays out. So these people that need to realize is that I am thinking about things and pulling things together from different directions, and people don't know what I'm pulling on. So this is why I have to explain why I think the way I do. So yes, the idea of the double conflictors. And I stand by this. Those people which are conflictors in Keirsey and socionics conflict more. And so I gave examples of here. INTP, no, that would be INT little p. So NIT and FES, so contender, rational, and collaborator guardian. So in MBTI letters, ESFJ and INTJ. These conflict more than, say, INTP and ESFP. Because ESFP and INTP both have a P preference and are both utilitarian and they're both informer. So it's like they're not trying to order each other around. Yeah, I don't want all that theory, INTP. I'll just do it my way. INTP, yeah, okay. I'm not going to try and to do that. Whereas, but you might say But then they're both J's. Yeah, but you got to look at Keirsey dichotomies. Informing, directive. Opposite. Informing, directive. So they're going to clash on that value. The ESFP is not trying to impose its SE on INTP. It's not using SE assertively. It's not using the force part of SE. But if the INTP gets on the case of ESFP and says, oh, well, actually, you didn't use that word correctly because logically, then the ESFP will defend itself. Get out of it, egghead. Your book learning. It doesn't mean anything. It's just blah, blah, blah. Is this how you talk in real life? So... Right. So other examples. So ENTJ with ISFJ. Again, these are double conflictors. These are conflictors in socionics and Keirsey. All right, right. So these are all conflictors in Keirsey. Sorry, these are all conflictors in socionics based on the letters, but not. And then the conflictors in. But so my contention is the ones that conflict in socionics and Keirsey, if we take the letters, if we take the functions directly mapping over. So, oh yes, oh god, I got to mention his name in a certain way. A certain Austrian so and so with a mustache, who was the leader of Germany in the first half of the 1940s. Disliked the leader of Spain. I can mention his name, Franco, who I think was ISTJ. And it's like AH did not like Franco's like going on about logistics and farming supplies, and it's like he outdid him with detail. He ISTJ'd him. INFJ with ESTJ, but again, they're both directive and they're both cooperative. They're both cooperative. Both cooperative. So my point here is INFP and ESTP are going to conflict way more than ESTJ and INFJ, because these are both trying to do what's best for society and are cooperative. Whereas ESTP is being very sort of amoral, if not immoral, but amoral, expedient, whatever gets the job done. And that can really rankle INFP. And then you've got INFP where, and again, if we compare INFP with ESTP versus INTP with ESFP, ESFP is not trying to ESFP is not trying to force and bully INTP, but ESTP can do that to INFP just to get a reaction to test limits and that lot, so they conflict more. And then ENFP and ISTP really conflict. Again, very opposite in dichotomies. So that's my contention, is that these conflict more, these four pairs. Especially like ENTJ woman would have a low opinion of ISFJ woman. Now, ISFJ woman might say to ENTJ woman, you have no life and you've worked yourself stress. I don't know. It's complicated with gender roles. But the sort of way it comes out more. But that's a little bit different because SI can help the ISTJ, the ISFJ with its TE for temperament reasons, because of going towards what works. But it's sort of the bottom line, sort of like hard-headed thinking, ISFJ finds hard, especially when it's blocked with NI. because ISFJ tends to be very cautious. They don't want to break eggs. To that expression, you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. Like the ISFJ is very accommodating. Don't want to do that in charge interaction style. Right, so I need to get back to the so I have an argument with intertype relations. I could also talk about valued functions, caution, safety. What's it? Oh yeah, that's something else. I can look at the mirror pairs, but in order to look at the mirror pairs, I can do it with this. It depends what you prefer to do. I'll use this one because I've not put it up a lot in this video. No, I use window, that one. Yeah. So the reason I'm showing this is these are going to be the mirror pairs. These are the mirror pairs. So there's similarity. So if we're looking from the way Keirsey has organized these mirror pairs, and then if we look at the functions, the closeness in the functions in the wheelhouse row matches these two types being close together. Because, so for example, seeing as we're concentrating on ISTJ and ISTP, so from a KBM point of view, Keirsey, Berens, Nardi, let's call it KBNV, Keirsey, Berens, Nardi, Vaislan. From a KBNV point of view, we have ISTJ as like ESTJ because they're both directive guardians with a position towards the logistical safekeeping intellect. And there's a bit of a difference there between expressive and reserved. And then that matches the functions there. But, and then with ISTP, so in KBNV, ISTP is not that different from ESTP, and ISTJ is not that different from ESTJ. But from a socionics point of view, they would type this as LSI, and this is LSE. But hang on a minute, they're different quadras with different valued functions. And the same here. You've got ISTJ with a stick up its arse, and they would, so LSI with a stick up its arse, and they're going to type ISTP as LSI. And you're going to say that person with a stick up its arse by the book person is the mirror of ESTP. And then what I would say is, well, look at all of the mirror pairs in socionics, and you'll find that it is the sensing types that have the biggest difference between mirror pairs, because socionics has got sensory introverts wrong. That's why. So if you think from a socionics point of view, there's not that much difference between ENFJ and between EIE and IEE, between IEE and EII. But there is between these, because it's mistyped. That's why. And here, this one's mistyped because instead of this being a accommodator guardian, it's an accommodator artisan. And it's like, and it's this, no, yeah, because it's like a mixed up ESI weird type. These, again, there's not much difference between these two. There's not much difference between these because it's not a sensing type. But here, oh, we've got, they're going to type an ESTP as an SLI. Oh, no, sometimes we'll type that. But the point is, the mirror pairs have greater difference. And when you get to the subtype profiles in Galenko have greater variance. Now, this is just a hypothesis, but it's like, oh, that would explain, like, you're trying to map out and explain the contradictions within the profile because it's the wrong way around. Right. Now, do you want me to get into, I mentioned subtypes. Oh, do I really want to get into this? Show thumbnails. Oh, I'm going to really get into this now. I'm going to really get into this now. I can really go to town on a TI point of view, logical consistency. Right. Right. Let's go to the video, the one with I have the soci. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to town. Socionics people. So, oh, by the way, I'll just mention the EEG data. All the Guardians have the right predicted EEG data. So, for example, people that Dario types as ISTJ and ISFP based on interaction style and temperament and a functional inventory, keyscognition.com, they have more activity in general in, it depends on subtype, but in general, FP2 than FP1 because that it's the type that corresponds to the type leading with an irrational function. And Farah, more activity in FP1 than FP2, ISTP preferences, which basically we model that as a type with a leading judging function, but socionics would classify as SLI. That's one argument, but TI is not logical and mathematical IQ. Yes, but socionics, the way it defines TI, it makes it that way. So, okay, then how do you explain people with inferior and tertiary TI who have an IQ of 150 plus in logico-mathematical? Because you've basically said that TI is just logico-mathematical intelligence by the way you defined it. Right? I've seen Jack debate somebody who was like, Jack would type as LII, and this guy was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I could see he's subjective thinking, but he had not worked it all out. And it's like, and Jack went easy on this guy. And it's like, okay, Jack realizes he's not in a fair contest here. So he went very much easy on him. So based on the model, it would be, oh, his TI, his logic would be better than Jack's. No. Jack's logic was better than his. But TI is a different matter. That's subjective thinking. And there's different kinds of subjective thinking as well. So, for instance, Jack's subjective thinking tends to be very assertive and very sort of like a rationalist philosophy, because Jack has, and in a difference from me, Jack has very little doubt. And he said that on Big Five, he has very low score for neuroticism. Whereas with me, I have a high 6, high neuroticism, and I'm looking for where things are wrong and don't work. So I'm pretty much suspicious of Enneagram authors, and there's like people messing up and stuff being in profiles that shouldn't be in there. I just like go over in red pen, this is not right. Like Naranjo's Enneagram 4 is rubbish. He's put stuff in there that shouldn't be in there. So an argument from consistency. Now I'm going to get into a functional positional argument for typing people. So this is ISTJ. Socionics would qualify this as SLI. And so they would say that that's like the ISTP people. Okay. So what I'm saying is that this functional model better matches ISTJ, SITX than this model better models ISTJ than ISTP. Why? Because really bad FE in terms of affect display. Oh, I don't know why people keep saying I'm boring. All I do is talk like this, and there's nothing wrong with that. Look up the character of E.L. Wisty by Peter Cook. Look up the character of You Didn't Wanna. Now, you didn't want to do that. You want to do it like this. This monotonal, ISTJ, bureaucratic voice. Look at Vladimir Putin. SITX. Right, now, I've studied comedy for a long time, so I can see his NE value on Putin in his SITX. And it's like he is very, very good at logistics. And the point is, this model better explains ISTJ than ISTP with the piss poor FE, but because it's a guardian and it belongs, it's not as FE polar as INTJ that tends not to give anything fecal related, or which is fecal rather. But this one, Ben, they do value a bit of NE, like a little bit of ideas, like the mental imagery. So it's like when I've got an ISTJ and I've got an ISTJ in front of me and they buy the book and they like the mental imagery. Okay, so they like the mental imagery. And I say, okay, I'm putting that under SI, subjective sensory instincting. They go towards cautiousness. Okay, I'm putting that under SI. They are got very little terrible affect display. I'm putting that under bad FE. They have this ability to do the practical thinking and going towards the data in that lot. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go that explains that better with TE. The FI tends to be the subjective feeling is very much affected by the temperament. I can see how ISTJ doesn't value SE, doesn't value all the artisan stuff. We can say is not right, and we can say that the TI is used to improve the system, but not come up with its own system. So, but then if we look at Galenka's version of ISTP, he thinks that this is ISTJ, and he'll say, oh, they're NE polar. That's because NE is associated with risk. Really? NE is associated with risk? So INFPs and INTPs are known for taking physical risks? Okay, let's go deeper. Let's go deeper. Different kind of risks. Intellectual risks, doing something wacky, doing something new, original. INTPs and INFPs can do that. Wrestling bears and jumping the shark. The Fonz jumped the shark and he said afterwards he was stupid for doing it. SE risks. NE risks versus SE risks. But when you're seeing ISTJ as LSI, that's going to be a problem. Also, so the ISTPs and MBTI really dislike ENFPs because they're NE polar. What else could be a good typing? Oh, John Grinder, MBTI, was in the Green Berets. I have to put this bluntly, he has got a boner for NI, John Grinder. He really has. Always talking about the unconscious, conscious, loves all that. Did a systematized Milton H. Erickson, who is INFJ AF. And I know from his son that David Keirsey Sr. thought Erickson was a genius and he went to be hypnotized. And I think he called him a genius before he was hypnotized. And even if only afterwards, that shows how good Erickson was. Very good. And INFJ is like, for Keirsey, INFJ is like the prototypical INFJ. Like, just watch what he would do with language. And really, the NLP Milton model is a bastardization of what Erickson was able to do, but it gives an idea of like how complex he was with his metaphorical speech patterns and vagueness in accessing unconscious resources. Again, intertype relations. I've asked people like Megan Rota, what do you think of ISTPs and ISTJs? And he says, oh, I like ISTPs more than ISTJs. Yeah. And Megan Lavota's is like her mother said, where does it go? And Megan Lavota's reaction was like, what do you mean, where does it go? It's like, it's not a thing. It doesn't like the reactions to SI. So we can do this out in terms of where the functions are placed to play this out. And what you get in socionics is you get profiles which are either self-contradictory or the different schools of socionics will view SEI SLI, LSI, and ESI in slightly different ways. So, for example, Olga Tangeman, who I have problems with because of her NE polar, Ben, you're always wrong. You always choose the wrong side. All right. Like in her description of SE, she emphasizes the freedom aspect of it. Oh, good. Oh, that's a social socionics who's getting actually a decent description of SE. Right. Now, Victor Galenka describes SE as force. Now, why do you think that might be, given his environment? Yeah, a lot of SE assertive in Ukraine. Right. You know, you got to. Anyway, I'm going to get political. Right. Yeah, for sensing types, the tangible outer world has a special relevance because it's strongly anchored in a tangible. Yes, there's a massive difference between artisan seeking of stimulation and guardian seeking of security. If you're seeking security, you're going to follow the rules and go by the book. If you're artisan seeking stimulation and really dislike boredom, then you are going to also, I can prove that artisans, oh god, so many arguments. What other argument can I go for? I have the argument of going towards where I can give reasons, I can give examples of people are more familiar with Socion. I can give examples of how ESTP and ISTP use subjective thinking. I can just do it. I can say, in Keirsey, they're utilitarian types. So to do things their own way, they think for themselves. I've heard Jeff's son Morgan destroy somebody trying to define functions in socionics because he's learnt it from like 8 years old and he's a really smart ESTP. And he's actually said that like TI is very malleable. So he's sort of very exceptionally strong TI. And you can just find holes in people's arguments. So, and that was against the socionics person who was middle-aged and LII. Right. And he gave me some good information on it. He uses SE. Very interesting. And for him, it was, yes, he knows he's smart, but he likes the ability to, and it's like you could see like he valued SE more than TI. But why am I going on about this? Yes. So the TI, this sort of like utilitarian thinking for itself, doing things in its own way, that fits all the TPs. Like this subjective thinking. So like in socionics, they have a problem where, okay, so they will admit that LII thinks for itself, that is a utilitarian thinker, but then LSI, that's also supposed to live with L, is meant to be this by the book person that doesn't really want to think for itself. And so Victor Galenka came up with a solution of, I'll make this L plus, where L plus is like being like a guardian, and L minus, those are for the LII. That can be the creative subjective kind of. So they had to come up with two different kinds of TI to explain the difference, because this is a mistyped ISTJ in socionics. I can have SE, and again, my definitions are very similar to Dario's, which are backed up by EEG data. So SE, where you've got, okay, let's go to some images of how I'm defining SE. Okay, that's how I'm defining SE. Right, which is very much like Dario. And that's a bit more on SE. And again, SI. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you there with SI. And I'm going to, what I should have got to before, which is Dario's definition of SE and SI. Oh, dear me. I'm going to keep going. Nardi. Okay, Jungian compatible. Nardi. 8 keys. Scans. My self-assessment scores? No. Or should I? Oh, right, okay. Instinct highlighted. Link here. Right. Okay, then we've got, let's do TI. That's NI. Right. No. All right, that's because of Kristen in there. Okay, now have we got TI there? Right. So I thought this through. What? Right. Right. Dario's SE and again, this is all instinct. This is more than just sensor. But socionics, they just want to dumb stuff down and just concentrate on force. Okay, which would be this. Spur action and get results simply by making your presence felt. Okay, that would be socionics force. But it doesn't have all of these other rich layers. Why doesn't it? Because it's not, because it's ignorant about temperament. That's why. Because socionics wants it to be perfectly symmetrical. And then here, all of this, all the stuff about comfort in socionics, that's just that little bit, comfort. It's like all of this, you can see the motivational complex behind the instinct, the artisan instinct, the guardian instinct. This is why SE and SI are so determinative. You can see here, in emergencies, trust solutions that have stabilized the situation in the past. What's reliable? Comfort, reliability, conservatism, cautiousness. Feel inclined to put a stop to something new to your experience. Go towards a customary standard. Follow. And other things that you can do with definitions in terms of a consistency argument. Look how this is opposite to that. A consistency argument. Get in sync physically, action, impulse, exciting, thrill, exciting, action. And all of these traits go with the warrior and the hunter, and this goes well with the conservative farmer, where you've got to repeat a lot of actions. Keirsey defined art as any action where the next any activity where the next action is a free variable. Yeah, artisans by temperament don't like being methodical and predictable. Jeff once said one of the best things that someone ever said to him was when someone said to him, "Jeff, I never know what you're going to say next." Right. Getting back to this. So I could argue from a point of consistency. I mentioned EEG, TI, not logical and mathematical IQ. The mirrors. So like I said, just go out there and test it. Try to falsify your own theory. Be scientific. Look for ENFPs. ENFPs are pretty easy to type. Go in the MBTI, go in the groups, know the people who are pretty sure ENFP. Ask them what they think of ISTJs. Ask them what they think of ISTPs. And then precisely get the ISTPs and ask the ISTPs. Ask the STPs what they think of NFPs. There's a consistency there. Like ESTP has a low opinion of INFP. ISTP has a low opinion of ENFP. Consistency arguments. Like INF, you ask the INTJs, do not like ESFJ. Like I asked these questions about intertype as part of typing. Right, now I'm going to get back to the comments of Jared, so I'm going to give him more of a fair shake in this, so he can put his case across. Oh, thank you, Ben, for waiting for. All right, here we go. Oh, blue collar jobs. Well, okay. Yes, STs can do all of that. STs can do the blue collar. Oh, wait a minute, I've gone a bit wrong. I went into a bit of a weird screenshot situation. Right. Okay, what am I supposed to do here? Should I vote that down? No, there's other types of memory. You got that wrong, so I'll do that. I'll do that as a thumb down. I've got to be honest. yeah, you know, all right, okay. I can't, you know, my first instinct is to the thumbs up, right? But I've sort of explained why. It's not like this is a disgraceful thumb down. This is like I don't quite agree with this, and I want to put some kind of marker that I've read it. I haven't responded. Right, ESFJ I can relate. What can you relate to? ESFJ. Yeah, but there's a difference between. I'm gonna say that's a good point. That is true, but that's not like wholehearted. Like that's not like 100% correct. But you know, that's me, the generousness of spirit. Because he's been good enough to make comments in the past. It's just on this issue that he's got a little bit testy. Helpful review. No, he's an approved commenter. Okay. Yeah, well, he would do. Is there anything else? There's more on this. Right. Okay. Okay. There's more than this. No, there's more than that. Yeah. Yeah, there's more than that. Right, here we go. Okay, I'll go through this, I'll be honest. Yeah. If you're gonna do that, yeah, if you are this I agree with. But yeah. Yeah, because you don't need to do it for the extroverts, folks. But yeah. Yay. These are the socionics names for the types. Okay. Yeah, there are differences. I'm talking about the actual types and how socionics has got it wrong with sensory introverts. Like I said, we could do field data on intertype relations. Yeah, there are problems with sensory introverts in socionics. Now, generally, socionics is good with the intuitives, and you actually get some lessons from that. Yeah, because what Victor did is he read the book. He read Please Understand Me, and he got the names. It was mentioned in an article. He's got the idea from. But yes, because he sees yeah, that's ISTP, lowercase p, yeah. Called Craftsman, yeah. No, but that's not right though. You need to put no, you need to put that would be SL in Victor's system, and that would be LS, and that would be RS and SR. Yeah, I know they did because they got the types the wrong way around. Okay, I'm gonna do that. Generosity of spirit. ISFJs actually lead with FISE. Well, that I can't agree with. No, they don't. All guardians lead with a judging function. No, they don't. This is where we have a disagreement. Essentially, that one's already been mentioned. Okay. Again, I'll give him a fair shake. I mean, he's good enough to watch the videos and comment. Yeah, but again, like if you're going to use that, I suggest you use the Galenko code because you're talking about SL. And if you're going about Galenko, he's using S and then TI. He's using senses, then logic. I can't have it in there on external thinking activity. But you could say it's SE. But you can have ISTJs, and because that's all ST stuff. So that's all STs are going to be pretty good at that. And it's also sort of non-type related as well. Falsely called them. Well, that's because those people have those preferences, as I showed you before. The preferences is different from the functional model. And I've also shown how the functional model better explains KBN ISTJs having reduced affect display and being FE polar. Because FE being the weakest function rather than an inferior function. Okay. No. This is where we disagree. This is where we're completely opposite. No, it doesn't. Right, okay, that gets voted down. I've already answered that. Right. Yeah, okay, you made the same point. I agree with this. Notice how... Yay! Oh, dear me. Right. Ben, ISFJ is mostly closely with... It depends on subtype. Yeah, I know it calls it the... Oh, God, I did the profiles and, like I did this. I've already, looked at this. Oh, dear. Look, let's look at this. All right, so... Okay, this is... Oh, I can just switch to this. So this is Victor's book. Right. I can't remember, but it may have been me who suggested putting psychological types in the title so that when people type it in, they find it on YouTube. So this is this book. I mainly contributed to the scientific editor. Favorite page in the book. So I was able to add bits. I go on about Austrian school economics. So there's a bit in this book where I go on about rationality, irrationality, and I mentioned von Mises and Keynesianism there. So you can see that this is an example of my input going in there. Logical does not necessarily mean 100% true. Compare Ludwig von Mises, who contradicts John Maynard Keynes. So that was a bit from me that was accepted. But my contribution to that book is the first 30 pages of it, where I was making little changes. But it had to go through the editor to accept the change. I don't people thinking that I didn't work on the actual profiles in the book, so you can't say, "Oh no, these profiles have been discredited because of he's been tinkering with those." I didn't touch the profiles. Right. So those profiles have not been are not being bastardized. Well, ISFPs actually use not the way I've interviewed them. We can the way it categorizes with the functions, it just works out better in the KBN way. Right. You have to warp the definitions of the functions to get that to work. Right. The actual function use, I'm gonna have to vote that down. Well, it can be business logic. Yeah, but you can embrace it though, and it's it can be good down the road. It's I've got to force. I don't disagree with that. I'm gonna give him some love for that. But what we need is a one in between. We need the middling. I need to make a campaign. The sixes want this. They want this. I can't. Yes, you can emphasize enough. I think you have emphasized enough. Again, we know this. How many times have I said sensory doesn't work for sensory introverts? Oh, I'm going to get my table out of yeah. What am I? I gave that a thumbs up. Right, I'm going to put the table out where I did for the subtypes about what translates over in Victor's book. So this becomes an advert for Victor's book. Right, so I did a table. Okay, where did I put the table? Okay, would it be in the Keirsey folder? Or would it be in the Galenko folder? Would it be in both? If I theory, maybe if I put it in model G. I don't have to put it on webcam. I could put it on webcam. Okay, this is going to be too difficult, so I'm going to have to put it on webcam. Because I have it in the book. So here we go. So from the profiles I read and making a careful comparison, yeah, the normalizing subtype. Right, the normalizing subtype matches ISFJ. So SEI. The previous type is just ILE. We're only interested in the sensory introverts. Right. There, LSI. But you need to read it properly. Yeah, the dominant subtype of LSI, yeah, is like KBN ESTJ. Same as ISTP. Closest to ISTJ, the normalizing subtype. It even mentions like car parts and martial arts, and like seriously. This one. Is that ESI? No, SEE. Yeah, that one, the creative subtype. Jeff's like that. Have I done ESI? SEE. Where's ESI? Oh, there. It's all the way down there. Right, that's closest to ISFP, but there's none that matches. Oh, I see that as the 17th type. I've actually written a character based around ESI in the guest character, which should be important in future. And then here, that annoyed me. That again, mix of ISTJ, ISTP, second closest to ISTP. And what I'm looking for there is I'm looking for the guardian instinct and the because the whole type profiles what Glenka does is a mix between general rule, the creative subtype in a sensory introvert will read more like artisan, and the normalizing subtype will read more like guardian. So you have this subtype system in order to end up in the right place by having the DCNH corrector, the eraser. Right. I wonder if it's going to be putting that point again. We know about the switch. Oh, I don't want to lose my spot. Okay, I've read that. SI memory of no, I mean I'll have to vote that down. I'm not doing your answers. I like how socionics talks about NI being a memory of the past pattern recognition. Does it? Not really. I mean, which is why I better any dot with reference to the past SI stored memory. Oh, I don't know about that. Okay. Yeah. What happened to this Jared 2 weeks ago? Right, a physical sensation. Okay. That's a reasonable point. Like I said, I've either got to pick up or down. If I had the mid in, I'd put mid in. Biden is ESTJ as they come. No, he's not. He's ESTP as they come. Like, Jesus. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I did that. So I think we've sort of... They ain't objective. I mean, seriously, do you want to have a discussion about language? Seriously? Because in order to make the case that they are objective, you're going to have to talk about thinking, which is outside of language. Because I can talk about semantic drift. I can talk about lots of features of language. I can go to audience research and people reading things different and communication studies. I can talk about semiotics. I can talk about the representative, which is the signifier, that the signified is actually another representative of another representative in itself. So for example, you read up the definition of a word and there's other words there that point to other words, and it's all part of a system, and those words, so there's subjectivity. So for example, when I say the word empathy, that does not directly translate into Wojtek's head, also LII. He has a different his concept of empathy is different from mine. Slightly different interpretations of the word. There's a subjective factor. Like, I can give examples of where people have miscommunicated because they have different understandings of words. So I can definitely prove the subjective factor in language. So now they at least try to be. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to go with a down on that one. I was feeling... I might go within the middle with the at least try to be. But yeah, I mean, you can get like bigoted, like propagandists for thinking, oh yeah, because my TI is logic. No, it's not. It's subjective thinking. I mean, look at all these INTPs that disagree with each other. What are you going to do? You're going to blame it on the intuition. All right. As DCNH notes. I think now we're getting into a different topic, because now we're getting on towards the JP, and now we just more questions from you, Jared. I think we could sort of do that in a separate video because it's already 2 hours. So I'm going to go back to... So I'm going to stop now. I am prepared to do that video. You know, if you're clean spoken, no swearing at all. Certified U language. Maybe do a video with Jeff and Kristen, and you trying to prove to them that Jeff's not a P and Kristen's not a J. Or that other people that they know who are guardians. So trying to find non-J guardians, and because Kristen has a lot of experience using type, and she's the one that applied social benefit rings in teaching, and the way it worked out with the pattern of consistency again was we got the right view of sensory introverts, and socionics has it wrong, because TI is not logic, because then it would always be right. Okay, think about this. This is for everybody. You have the soundness of an argument, and you have the validity of an argument. A valid argument is one which is internally consistent. A sound argument has sound principles and is goes from sound principles and then is true, and then is seen as sound because it's also internally consistent. But here's the thing: you could have an argument which works from sound principles and is internally consistent, and you could say, oh, that's a sound argument. But then I could say, yes, but that actual argument does not model all of the factors in a situation. So we then start getting towards truth. So TI means subjective because introverting is subjective by definition, and extroverting is empirical. Because otherwise, we're going to say that thinking is empirical and never wrong. And I can come up with loads of examples of thinking which is subjective. Or I would have to I could press somebody, show me some thinking which is objective. And I could press on it and press on it and press on it and find the subjectivity. Because those are examples of philosophers, LII philosophers being wrong. And I would also come back with this. Why do you think Immanuel Kant, he could run for the title of greatest INTP ever? Get the time machine out, give him a German English dictionary, right? That's why I wrote the book, A Critique of Pure Reason. A critique of pure TI written by these rationalists who think that what they say is the word of logic and is always right. No, again, but I go towards the subjectivity factor of TI because of the 6 in me and interest in Buddhism. The veil of Maya, where you can sort of think of the socionics people that view the world through this lens of all of these categories, and it filters out what they already know. And they can get leverage in some areas and misunderstand people in others, which is the problem with all typologies. So again, a critique of pure reason. The fact that Immanuel Kant wrote a book that with a title that translates to a critique of pure reason, well, isn't the definition of TI that socionics use? It's almost like pure reason. It's TI as pure reason, whereas I see it as subjective thinking which draws on pure reason for its rational elaboration. So, for example, in this video, I've given a defense of the definitions I use, and I've done some TE and said, well, this is like this, and this sort of, we can look at this. But I've also gone from a consistency argument. So that's like the rational elaboration and the logic of if this, then that, all of that kind of stuff. And so it's the rational elaboration. And I'm prepared to admit that my thinking is subjective. And this explains why. So like I said, for those people that think that TI is objective, I would say to people, why can two LII people have a difference of opinion? Investigate it. Investigate. Try to falsify the theory. Find an issue that they have a difference of opinion. Find out why they have a difference of opinion. Why do they have a difference of opinion? And what you'll get down to is the subjective factor is different between the two, slightly different values. It's not the case of one's made a logical error and one's smarter than the other one. You can get a couple of LIIs of the same logical and mathematical intelligence that just working off a different premise. So, for example, there we go. It's the premises you work off. There we go. And just look at, like, if it's subjective, like, how can it ever be wrong? Like, there's loads of things where people have made the mistake because of subjectivity. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to get, I mean, if people are arguing that, again, if someone's saying that thinking is objective and it's external and doesn't need to be reinterpreted, I'm like, but I can give you examples of sentences that need to be interpreted and people misunderstanding other people and people reading things differently. So you're going to have to give me thinking that doesn't involve language, because language definitely has a subjective factor. Unless you want to, do you want to have a debate with a linguist or a semiotician on that score? Really? Like there's all subjects out there, communication theory, people misunderstand about coding and decoding. People just do that in different ways. Words have different meanings over time and in different contexts. And also, just the context of a word changes its meaning. I mean, I can do that in writing with subtext, where the meaning that is beneath the words and that hints at other things, that's recontextualized by other information. Context that changes the code, recontextualized. So, for example, without giving spoilers away, in Babylon 5, little lines that were here in the first season, you have a hole in your mind. To Sinclair, or when someone says to him, if I said this would be a spoiler. But there's an example, spoilers. Think of your favorite series where, and then when you watch it again after you've known all of the revelations, how what you see at the time is recontextualized with the hindsight, and how it's read differently with that hindsight. So all of the information was not in what was said, it's the context in which it's heard. And all of these things are in linguistics and literary analysis. And so when someone says thinking is objective, like, what? I mean, not language isn't. It just isn't. I mean, I have a book on semiotics. If you really want to sort of like, I can go to town on this, you know. I can really go to town on this. If you're talking about language, like so saying that thinking is doesn't need to be empirical and is objective is to say that the word is the same as the meaning, that there's a one-to-one relationship. So for example, here they've got the mental concept and you've got the signifier. Yeah, like example, the word dog. Tell that people are going to imagine a slightly different dog. There you go. Mental concept of dogness. Quadruped. Right. But you're going to see a slightly different one. So there's a subjective factor. There you go. Someone says dog. Someone has a vague idea of what a dog is. But the real dog might be a Great Dane rather than a general dog. And that's the same with all words. So someone might say to somebody, oh, he's a little bit mean, or they might use a word in a slightly different connotations. Here we go. Another example, if words didn't work, we wouldn't need a dictionary. So every word I would say, you would know the meaning of. Sardonic, assiduous, perspicacious, calipagian, bathycopian. Some of those are a bit rude. But you know what I mean? Like, certain words, you have to go, oh, what does that mean? Winsome, comely. Lots of words that people they don't know it straight away. They have to get the code book out. Have we got the unlimited semiosis? Like, this was a guy who was a great philosopher, was Charles Sanders Peirce. Right, an unlimited semiosis. That further sign representum. A sign in the mind. Remember, we said that the interpretant was like a further sign in the mind. As such, the interpretant has an important role to play in the sign triad, ad infinitum. And so the way meaning, secondness, thirdness, like, this guy had a big intellect. It's usually understood in terms of a thing like, first, there's no relations. Brute facts which arise from a relationship in the sense that arises coexistence with other things. So example, signs with other signs. And then how the sign relates to reality. What we got? Is that, here we go. Representation. Resemblance, the icon. Like with a folder on your desktop. Then causation index. So, for example, smoke is an index of fire, because smoke usually is caused by fire. And then you've got the convention, the symbol. But the convention will differ by culture. So again, language, signs. So the nod, the shake might mean something different in a different culture. Like, what does that mean in Italian? Don't do that. You could do that in South America, but not in Brazil. Very rude. Meaning is different from the sign. It's the same with words. Like I said, if you get the book on semiotics, and then it's like, it's not about information, it's about semiotics. So it's language. Think of, I've read books on audience analysis. Think of people watching the same movie or TV show, getting different lessons out of it because they have a different frame of reference and they decode the information in different ways. I read a book called Science Fiction Audience. I read a book called Science Fiction Audiences. And it's about how the audience decodes various science fiction shows and different kinds of audience decoding it in different ways. And then there was a book called Doctor Who, The Unfolding Text, about performance codes and stuff like that. And there'd be, so for example, there'd be little things that Patrick Troughton did in terms of his acting performance that would be a little bit Buster Keaton-esque. And so for someone who had that competence, they would say, oh, he's done that thing like this. Or me, when I see James Callis doing Baltar, and he says, how are you leaving? And he's doing it in a like Carry On style, but somebody else doesn't have that, doesn't get that reference. So if we're talking about thinking mediated by language, that is not objective, but there is an empirical part to it and a subjective part to it, which is why you can understand me enough. Right? This is why people can understand each other, but also misunderstand each other. If like, this is why some INTPers are trying to come up with a new language that works better than English. Look at something called IFCUIL. Right.